Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Personal Growth Talk podcast. I'm your host, Jason, and today we're diving into a topic that every English learner needs to hear about: how to build your English brain. If you've ever felt stuck translating words in your head while trying to speak English, this episode is for you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Julia, your co-host. Jason, this topic is so important. I remember when I first started learning English, I'd always think in my native language first and then try to translate. It made everything slow and frustrating.
Exactly. And that's what we'll tackle today. We'll talk about what it means to have an English brain, why it's a game changer, and, most importantly, how you can train your brain to think directly in English. Trust me, it's simpler than you think.
Absolutely. So grab your headphones, sit back, and let's get started. By the end of this episode, you'll have some practical tips to stop translating and start thinking in English with ease.
All right, let's dive in. So, Julia, let's start with the big question. What exactly is an English brain? What does it mean to think in English?
Good question, Jason. An English brain means training your mind to process thoughts directly in English instead of thinking in your native language and then translating. It's about making English your default way of thinking, especially when listening, speaking, or even reading.
That makes sense. When you think in English, it becomes automatic, right? Like when you see a chair, instead of thinking about the word in your native language, you immediately think chair.
Exactly. It's about developing that mental connection where English feels natural. Think of it like muscle memory, but for your brain. The more you practice thinking in English, the less effort it takes to form sentences or express your thoughts.
That's such a great way to put it, like building a habit. I've heard a lot of learners say they struggle because they always translate in their heads. Why do you think that happens?
Well, it's because most of us learn English through translation at first. For example, you learn chair by connecting it to the word in your native language. But over time, if you want to speak fluently, you need to break that habit and make English your first mental response.
Right, it's like rewiring your brain. And this shift is so important because it speeds up your reaction time and helps you communicate more naturally. Plus, it reduces the stress of constantly finding the right word.
Exactly. So when we talk about building an English brain, we're talking about retraining your mind to think, imagine, and respond in English first, without translating. It's a process, but it's totally achievable with the right techniques.
Perfect explanation, Julia. So now that we understand what an English brain is, let's move on to why it's so important and how it can change the way you learn English. Now that we know what an English brain is, let's talk about why it's so important. Julia, why do you think this shift makes such a big difference for English learners?
Great question, Jason. One of the biggest reasons is speed. When you translate in your head, it slows everything down. Imagine you're in a conversation and you have to think of the word in your language, translate it to English, then speak. By the time you're ready, the moment might have passed.
Exactly, and that can make you feel nervous or even embarrassed, right? Plus, it can stop you from fully enjoying conversations because you're so focused on the translation process.
Yes, and it's not just about speed. Building an English brain also helps with accuracy. Translating doesn't always work because some words or phrases don't have a direct translation. For example, idioms or expressions like "it's raining cats and dogs" don't make sense if you try to translate them literally.
That's a great point. Thinking in English lets you understand and use phrases the way native speakers do. It's also key to sounding more natural when you speak, which builds confidence.
Exactly. And confidence is such a huge part of learning a language. When you stop translating, you feel more in control. You can focus on expressing your ideas instead of worrying about making mistakes.
That's so true. And let's not forget how this helps with listening skills. When you think in English, you process what you hear faster. which means you can keep up with conversations or even enjoy movies and podcasts without subtitles.
Absolutely. So, in short, building your English brain isn't just about improving fluency, it's about making English a natural part of your life. And that's what brings real progress.
Well said, Julia. Now that we know why it's important, let's dive into the fun part: how to actually train your English brain. All right, Julia, now it's time to talk about the practical part: how to train your English brain. Where should someone start if they want to think directly in English?
Great question, Jason. The first step is immersion. You don't have to live in an English-speaking country to immerse yourself. Surround yourself with English wherever you can. Listen to English podcasts, watch movies or shows in English, and read simple books or articles. Even just hearing the language often helps your brain get used to it.
That's a good point. Another method I recommend is labeling. For example, label the things around you in English: your desk, your chair, your phone, and start calling them by their English names in your mind. It's a simple way to train your brain to associate objects with English words.
Absolutely. And to take it a step further, you can start narrating your daily life in English. For example, if you're cooking, think to yourself, "I'm chopping vegetables," or "I'm boiling water." This turns your everyday routine into a practice session.
That's a great tip. I also suggest using visualization. Close your eyes and imagine a scenario, like going to a restaurant or meeting a friend. Then think about how you'd express yourself in English in that situation.
Yes, visualization is powerful. And speaking of practice, one thing that works wonders is journaling in English. It doesn't have to be complicated. Just write a few sentences about your day or how you're feeling. This helps you think in English while improving your writing skills.
I love that idea. Another fun way to train your brain is to talk to yourself. It might feel silly at first, but it's really effective. You can practice common phrases or even have imaginary conversations in English. What do you think, Julia?
Definitely. And for those who enjoy technology, there are plenty of English learning apps out there. Apps like Duolingo or Memrise encourage you to think in English by offering games, quizzes, and vocabulary building.
Great point. And one more tip. Try to stop translating in your head. When you learn a new word, don't think about its meaning in your native language. Instead, connect it directly to the object, feeling, or action it represents.
Exactly. The more you do this, the more natural it will feel. Remember, training your English brain isn't something that happens overnight. It takes consistent effort, but every little step counts.
Right. And the best part is, these tips are easy to incorporate into your daily routine. So listeners, pick one or two of these techniques and start practicing today. Small changes lead to big results.
Couldn't agree more, Jason. So let's move on to some fun, practical exercises to help you build your English brain even faster.
Now that we've talked about strategies, let's get into some fun and practical exercises to help build your English brain. Julia, do you have a favorite exercise that you recommend?
Absolutely, Jason. One of my favorites is the mirror exercise. Stand in front of a mirror and talk to yourself in English. Pretend you're having a conversation. Introduce yourself, describe your day, or even role-play a situation like ordering coffee. It's great for building confidence and thinking in English without pressure.
I love that one. Another great exercise is what I call the Machino 5-second rule. Whenever you see something around you, take 5 seconds to describe it in English. For example, if you see a tree, you could say, "It's tall, it has green leaves, and it gives shade." This forces your brain to think quickly in English.
That's a great idea. Another fun exercise is story building. Choose 3 random words. For example, dog, beach, and ice cream. Then try to make a short story using those words. For instance, the dog ran to the beach and ate an ice cream. It's simple, but it trains your brain to think creatively in English.
That's such a fun one. Another exercise I recommend is English journaling challenges. Each day, write a few sentences about something specific, like your favorite food, a memory, or even your goals. But here's the twist. Write without using a dictionary. This pushes you to use the words you already know and think in English.
That's brilliant. And for those who love listening, try the shadowing exercise. Pick a short audio clip or a podcast and repeat what you hear word for word, trying to match the speaker's tone and rhythm. It's fantastic for training your brain to process English faster and improving your pronunciation.
Absolutely. And here's one more. Daily recap. At the end of the day, take 5 minutes to recap your day out loud in English. Talk about what you did, how you felt, and what you're looking forward to tomorrow. It's a simple exercise, but it helps you connect your thoughts in English.
These exercises are so effective because they make you actively engage with English. The more you practice, the easier it will be to think in English naturally.
Exactly, Julia. So listeners, pick a couple of these exercises and try them out today. Remember, the key is consistency. You'll see progress faster than you think.
Absolutely. Now, let's wrap things up with a quick recap and some final motivation for our listeners.
All right, Julia, we've covered a lot today. From understanding what an English brain is to learning why it's important and trying out practical exercises. I hope our listeners are feeling motivated to start training their English brain right away.
Absolutely, Jason. And remember, it's all about small, consistent steps. You don't have to be perfect, and it's okay to make mistakes. The important thing is to keep practicing and challenging yourself to think in English as often as possible.
Well said, Julia. So, to all our listeners, here's your challenge. Pick one or two of the exercises we discussed today and commit to doing them every day for the next week. Whether it's the mirror exercise, journaling, or shadowing, make it a part of your daily routine.
And don't forget to have fun with it. Language learning is a journey, not a race. Celebrate your progress, no matter how small it seems.
Exactly. And if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who's also learning English. We'd love to hear about your progress, so leave a comment or share your favorite tips for building an English brain.
Yes, we love hearing from you. And stay tuned for our next episode, where we'll explore more ways to make learning English easy and fun.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Until next time, keep practicing, keep learning, and keep building that English brain.
Bye for now, and happy learning.